When I was young, I returned to my grandparents' home in Akita Prefecture, which we only visit once a year in summer vacation period. Arriving there, I immediately went out to play with my elder brother in a big happiness. Unlike the city side where we live, the air is definitely better. I was running around the rice field with my brother in a fresh breeze. Then, when the sun had climbed up and it was about the midday, I thought that the window had stopped and warm, unpleasant wind was blowing. As I felt I was deprived of the exhalation of the fresh air, I complained unpleasantly that, even though it is already so hot, why such creepy wind starts to blow? Then I noticed my brother was looking in another direction. There was a scarecrow in that direction. When I asked my brother, "What's wrong with that scarecrow?" he said, "No, it's beyond that," and he started to stare at it more carefully. I also got curious and stared at the end of the rice field. Then I could see something for sure. "What's that?" I said. As we were looking at it from a distance, we couldn't figure out what it was. But we noticed that it was a white object which is about the same size of human, and it was moving. Moreover, there were only rice fields around there, and nobody was nearby. I felt strange for a moment, but I interpreted it like that. That's not a normal scarecrow, as there wasn't any scarecrow that had ever moved, so someone from Pharma had invented it recently. My brother seemed to be convinced of my precise interpretation, but his expression disappeared from his face immediately. The window had stopped suddenly. However, that white object is still moving. "Hey, oh my god, he's still working. What's that all about?" He mentioned so in a surprised tone. As he couldn't help knowing what it was, he returned home and came with his binoculars. He looked a little excited and said, "Okay, I will see it first. You should wait a little." And he started to see that object through the binoculars. Then, suddenly, his face changed. The color of his face turned deep blue, sweating a lot, and finally dropped his binoculars. I was afraid of my brother's sudden change, but I asked him, "What's that?" And he replied, "You do not need to know." That voice was no longer my brother's voice. My brother trudged back home. I tried immediately to pick up the binoculars and see that white object which made my brother dark blue, but I didn't have courage enough to see it. Probably the words my brother said, "You do not need to know," made me stop doing so. Seeing it from the distance, the white object just moved strangely, and even it looked strange, but I didn't feel fear with that. Okay, I have no choice, but let's see what had scared my brother. I thought so and looked into the binoculars. Then, I noticed that my grandfather was running out the house and approaching me. Before I talked to him, he asked me, "What happened? You mustn't see that white object. Did you see that? Did you see that through those binoculars?" I answered I hadn't seen it yet. My grandfather said, "Oh God," and began to cry. I had no choice but to return home with him without understanding what's going on. When we got home, everyone was crying. I thought, is everyone crying about me? Actually, they were not crying about me. My brother was laughing like crazy and dancing like the white object. I felt a greater sense of fear in him than the white object itself. And a few days passed from that day. On the day we had to go back to Tokyo, my grandmother told me that my elder brother would be better to stay here. It seems to be difficult for him to get back to the normal life anymore. We have no options but release him to the rice field in several years. I cried so badly when I heard her words, and I realized if I would meet him again when we would come to my grandparents' house next year, it's no longer my brother. Why did it happen? I was just playing with him. Why? I wiped my tears, got in the car, and went off. Next to my grandparents waving their hands, it seemed as if my elder brother had waved at me for a moment. As I moved away, I looked through the binoculars to see brother's face. He certainly cried. He had a smile on his face, but it was the first and last sad smile that my brother had never shown. I continued to look into the binoculars with tears, even after we turned the first corner and no longer I could see him. I just hoped he will get himself back someday, and just overlook the rice fields with empty mind. I was just looking through the binoculars while remembering my memories of my brother. Then, suddenly, I saw the white object in a close distance. Thank you very much for listening to the story. I am planning to add a new story once in 2 weeks, hopefully. Well, in order to spread out Japanese modern scare stories to scare story fans all over the world, and to brush up my English skills, it would be highly appreciated if you hit like and subscribe this channel. Thank you. どうもありがとう。